No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 362. And breaking today, Britain erupts over the hard left destruction of the United Kingdom with an uprising in Crowborough and clashes in Birmingham as the family of a hotel worker killed by an illegal migrant joins the fight on the streets.
Okay. Move back.
Bristol patriots say, whose streets? Our streets. The communists. Every time the smoking gun is the communist left.
People want to stand here and chant, let them stay. Immigration should be legal. We should know who is coming into our country, who is walking our streets.
The anger erupted after Donald Trump was prepared to say what our corrupted politicians are not. It's a fact that Sharia law is already destroying the Disunited Kingdom.
He's a terrible mayor, and look at the crime you have in London. My mother loved London. She loved that city. She'd always talk about, that was a different London than you have today. You have Sharia law where they don't even want to obey the laws of, your country.
Yet we're meant to trust this woman who wants to become the UK's first Islamist Prime Minister?
Well known that if the job came free, he'd probably have a tilt at it, would you?
Look, I don't indulge in this kind of, future hypotheticals and all this ridiculous chitter-chatter. It's not what I'm about.
And Shabana Mahmood is just tampering with the edges of asylum policy. What this country needs is a change of government, and it needs it right about now.
But the hard left are losing the argument as they reach for the most desperate of slurs.
Told by people in New York and Chicago that London is a scary and dangerous place. And as an elected politician in Britain, not actually pushing back and explaining, that's Lord Haw-Haw territory.
A mother whose son was mugged at knife point, a former senior Crown prosecutor being compared to a Nazi sympathiser for telling the truth. Well, I tell you what, James, if you're trying to bully me into silence, that's not going to work.
Why we will no longer believe the lies of the left as we see the destruction of our country around us every day in my digest next. Then, my superstar panel here, the honorary president of UKIP and a former Tory minister, Neil Hamilton, and broadcaster extraordinaire, Christine Hamilton, who just so happens to be his wife as well. Also coming up on the show today, Mike Graham makes a major announcement as the backlash against his Talk TV sacking grows, with its flagship show Plank of the Week tanking without him. The BBC's deranged war on Donald Trump continues, and in disastrous timing for the British Bashing Corporation, as I call it, a new book confirms what I have long thought. Panorama and the Martin Bashir scandal led to the death of Princess Diana. We will analyse the bombshell new findings. Then, in the uncancelled after show on Substack, desperately ambitious Meghan Markle infuriates Netflix chiefs with her transparent bid to cozy up to Jeff Bezos. I wonder how Lauren Sanchez feels about that. We'll have all the latest as we team up with the Royal News Network. And of course, before the end of the show today, we will also award the first Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the Week. You choose the worst Briton in the world right now from these nominees. Get voting on the YouTube live chat. But here are the nominations today. Angela Rayner, nominated by It's Back Again, who has popped up wanting to be the PM, even though she still hasn't paid the £40,000 to HMRC. Get in the bin. Narinder Kaur, nominated by Kaz Quinn for cozying up to the Green Party. The grift don't stop. And Rachel Reeves, nominated by Warning Shot, who says she's very good at adding black holes to the ones they inherited, with more to come. So we will be announcing the brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at the end of the show. A programming note for you as well. Tomorrow, Mike Graham speaks out for the first time live right here on Outspoken. We will be sitting face to face in the Outspoken studio. Nothing is off limits. This is a no holds barred conversation. The first time Mike Graham has spoken since that scandal that saw him removed from Talk TV. you can go right now and schedule that live show. Click on watch later and make sure that you are with us at 5 p.m. tomorrow, because trust me, it is going to be blockbuster. But now, let's go. The mainstream media and corrupt British bashing corporation are refusing to reveal the real rage throughout the Disunited Kingdom. In fact, they are ignoring it. They are ignoring it as mass immigration destroys our biggest cities and now small towns too. They are ignoring it as the invasion of illegals puts all our safety at threat. And they are ignoring it as Sharia law is introduced through the back door. Indeed, it is only the American president, rather than our own politicians, who is brave enough to admit what is really going on. So in Crowborough this weekend, residents chanted "Starmer out" as thousands upon thousands attended a protest against plans to house 600 lone male asylum seekers, or in my words, illegals, at an army camp on the edge of their town. Watch. Absolutely horrendous for the people of Crowborough in so many ways. Panic alarms installed in their homes, concerns about being able to get a GP appointment. And I look at these crowds and I think, these are true patriots who know what is coming. And I am afraid to say it is just the beginning of what is coming. Pink Ladies leader Orla Minihane posted in support, writing, "Wow, that's a lot of far-right racists in one town. Maybe they just don't want 600 illegal migrant men as neighbours. Maybe they want to be consulted. Maybe they want their children and women safe. We stand with Crowborough." Then in Bristol, as Britain erupted, once again there was two-tier policing on full display, as hard-left Antifa thugs were allowed to get away with being violent and masked. Watch.
Alright, okay. Move back. Who protects the racist? Police protect the racist! Who protects the racist? Who protects the racist? Stand back. Police protect the racist!
How you doing, my friend?
Who are you? We are Bristol! Who are you?
Stand your phone.
He's a fucking fascist. He's a part of UKIP. He is definitely a fascist. I guess that's not what you're hired for, is it?
We are live and direct outside of Bristol, in which case we have a bunch of ballied up Antifa marching down the street in response to a anti-migration demo outside an asylum seeker hotel. And as you can tell, you know, the police are all the way down there. It's quite gruesome. It's always been violent with Antifa in Bristol.
Patriots say, whose street? Our streets. The communists. Every time the smoking gun is the communist left, the extreme left in Britain. These people are terrorists. They want open borders. And the police are put in the middle every time. Together we are stronger. Bristol Patriots says no surrender, no diplomacy, and no surrender. We want these people gone. They are domestic terrorists who have subversive intent. They are outside the Mercure Hotel, where fighting-age males, undocumented men are being harboured at our expense. It is time to begin mass deportations of the terrorists in Britain.
And what the MSM and our politicians, Nick Tenkoni of UKIP aside, so often forget is the tragic human stories behind this anti-immigration uprising. Like Rhiannon White, murdered by this illegal scumbag, who, as Tommy Robinson wrote, saw her brave sister speak out as concerned families protested in Wolverhampton about the invasion of the UK. Rhiannon, he reminded us, was stabbed 23 times by a Sudanese invader the far left turned up to scream refugees welcome over the speeches from the family. Watch.
My sister did not deserve to die. Rhiannon's now 6-year-old son. He knows what happened to his mother. People want to stand here and chant, let them stay. Immigration should be legal. We should know who is coming into our country, who is walking our streets, but instead, no, the government want to allow these people into our country, have no idea what crimes they've committed in other countries. Our government have a lot to answer to. Immigration is done correctly and we have amazing doctors, nurses, teachers. This needs to end. In Rhiannon's name and in every other woman who is affected by this and her son who has to grow up without a mother. This ends now. Yes. We make a change now.
Can I just ask you?
My sister worked in a migrant hotel.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people do. And she was stabbed 23 times to the fucking head. Because she was getting a straight home and killed her.
Fucking hell, man.
And he's fucking Sudan.
And he's like here.
So all of these uneducated in the country 11 weeks prior on a dinghy. 11 weeks. 11 weeks. And he's stalked her for hours. Hours of hours.
23 stab wounds.
23 stab wounds. To the breast and her arm in self-defense. And the right one that killed her went straight to the core of her brain. And these bastards are standing there defending her. What about Katie last week?
Hello.
What about Paul Lily?
Hello.
What about Paul Lily last week? Show your face. Don't hide behind your side. Show your face. How many times this is okay? My sister was murdered.
Her sister was murdered. Murdered. It could happen to any of you lot.
God bless you, Alexandra White. And just imagine protesting against a woman like that, whose sister, let me remind you, there she is. Let's all repeat her name, Rhiannon White. Rhiannon White, fatally stabbed after 23 blows to her head from a screwdriver by this cretin Deng Majik from Sudan, who had been here for 11 weeks. 11 weeks illegally in the country before he took this woman's life. And in the midst of this genuine hell we're now living, the regime media and Labour are telling us that we're meant to trust the woman who wants to become the UK's first Islamist Prime Minister to solve the problem. Yes, that is right, Shabana Mahmood, Labour's Home Secretary, who has openly said Islam drives every decision that she makes in her life. We're meant to believe that she's going to shut our borders, all while she is angling to replace Slippery Starmer and become Britain's first Muslim Prime Minister.
And your colleague Wes Streeting had to deny this week that he was plotting any kind of leadership attempt. But it is, you know, it's well known that if the job came free, he'd probably have a tilt at it. Would you?
Look, I don't indulge in this kind of, future hypotheticals and all this ridiculous chitter-chatter. It's
This
not
is a
what
valid
I'm
question
about.
because Keir Starmer's leadership is questioned by many of your colleagues.
No, and Keir Starmer's leadership is not only secure, but he has the full support of all of his cabinet. He is our Prime Minister. He led us to a historic general election win at a time when people thought we would not form another government for at least a generation or more. That was only a year and a half ago. I know that things have been difficult. Government is always difficult. There are always challenges. The most important thing is Keir Starmer is our Prime Minister. We won a general election. We've been granted a privilege and precious time to set the direction for our country. All of us have to make sure that we do not waste a single second of that time.
And the elite class, by the way, very much on board with the idea of Shabana Mahmood, Prime Minister. Kamal Ahmed writing in The Telegraph, yes, The Telegraph, the right-wing Telegraph today, that Shabana Mahmood would make a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer, as she is one of the few rays of sunshine in an otherwise bleak landscape. That's suicidal empathy right there, folks, but Katie Hopkins is, of course, not being suckered.
I was in Chicago and New York on holiday, as my husband's American, and so many people were like, oh my God, we've heard about what's going on in the UK, are you guys okay? And instead of saying, well, hello, person from Chicago, let's sit down and compare statistics, shall we? What are we going to start?
News, the good people of Crowborough out protesting against 600 illegals, the rubber dinghy massive brigade, being dumped in their little town in a military barracks. The thing is, many of these people in Crowborough moved out of London to escape multiculturalism and now finds multiculturalism being dumped on their doorstep. The government doesn't care. All it wants to do is get rid of the line item that's labelled hotel costs for illegals. And Shabana Mahmood is just tampering with the edges of asylum policy. What this country needs is a change of government, and it needs it right about now.
Absolutely, but what is most shocking is that those on the left will literally now lie to our faces about the fact that crime is soaring and we are now unsafe on the streets of our biggest cities thanks to this invasion, as Wayne Broadhurst found out in the past few weeks as he was stabbed to death on camera in London by an Afghan illegal. As the City Hall Conservatives put it, under Sadiq Khan, crime has soared and all the long-term data shows it, yet still, when questioned, the mayor tries to cherry-pick the facts. And he did. Watch this.
Sit there with a straight face and say crime is down. Since you became mayor in 2016, knife crime has gone up by 27%. Violence against the person has increased by 26%. Robbery has increased by 57%. Theft has increased by 37%. Shoplifting has increased by 109%. Sexual offences have increased by 64%. All crime since you, Sadiq Khan, became Mayor of London have increased by 26%. Don't Londoners deserve the truth about the state of crime in the capital from you?
You deal with the list that was read out. Theft from motor vehicle down by 18%.
Over what date range? Over what date range? Over what date range? Over what date range? Since you became Mayor of London, over what date range?
Over the last 9 years.
Not the last month. The last 9 years. I know you don't like the truth, but apologise to Londoners over your tenure that you have allowed crime to skyrocket.
But this type of gaslighting is being taken up by Khan's close friends in the MSM. Notably, the truly despicable James O'Brien, who has compared Reform UK's rising star Layla Kynham to Lord Haw-Haw, a Nazi sympathiser who was hanged for treason. She says, why? For people agreeing with people I met in NYC that London is dangerous? And she said, with just 2 hours on air, LBC chose this moment to clip and post. They have a clear agenda. Now, I want you to watch this pitiful attack from James O'Brien and Layla Kynham's bold response.
I was in Chicago and New York on holiday, as my husband's American, and so many people were like, oh my God, we've heard about what's going on in the UK, are you guys okay? And instead of saying, well, hello, person from Chicago, let's sit down and compare statistics, shall we? What are we going to start with? School shootings or violent crime on the streets? Or should we start with the murder rate? Oh, hello, New Yorker, who believes that London is unsafe. Shall we start with the statistics, the facts, the evidence and the detail? Or shall we go onto your social media account and believe all the bilge that has been put there by liars like me? That idea of being told by people in New York and Chicago that London is a scary and dangerous place, and as an elected politician in Britain, not actually pushing back and explaining, that's Lord Haw-Haw territory.
James O'Brien crossed a line today. He compared me to Lord Haw-Haw, who, as a Nazi sympathiser, hung in this country for treason. And the reason why he compared me to him was because I had the audacity to agree with people in New York and Chicago who said that they were scared to come to London because it was more dangerous. Imagine that. A mother whose son was mugged at knife point, a former senior Crown prosecutor, being compared to a Nazi sympathiser for telling the truth. Well, I tell you what, James, if you're trying to bully me into silence, that's not going to work. I will never, ever stay silent. I will always defend the victims of crime in this city, the ones that you and your best pal, Sadiq Khan, try and cover up. Because Londoners know the truth. They know that we have a knife crime epidemic, a rape epidemic, a robbery epidemic. And the fact that you sit in your ivory tower and pretend it's not happening is an insult to all those victims and all Londoners.
Good on Layla. But the problem is, there are lefty lunatics all over the place trying to pretend otherwise, like Stella Creasy, a Labour madwoman who was trying to convince us London is so safe. It's so safe that she posted thank you to some corporate for the joy of finding your flash mob tonight and joining in. The more they hate us, the more we need to take to the streets to show the joy that can be found here. Sorry to disappoint you, Rupert Lowe. London isn't broken, it's bouncing. Prompting Rupert to respond, you're like that cartoon dog sitting in the burning building. It's pretty tragic, isn't it, that we rely on Donald Trump, a foreign leader, a great foreign leader in my opinion, but still a foreign leader, to tell the truth about the perilous reality of what we are facing with Sharia law.
Your mayor is a disaster. Okay, I don't know him. I don't even know what. If you put him there, I wouldn't even know who he was. I can tell you, he is a disaster. Yeah. He's a nasty person. And he's letting crime go. You have areas in London, and you have this in Paris too, where the police don't even want to go anywhere near those areas. You have Sharia law where they don't even want to obey the laws of your country or France or other countries. And you have much worse conditions than even that. It's crazy what's gone on with Europe. And, I'll do this interview. I hope it's not too controversial because, to be honest with you, it's just fact. It's not like there should be no controversy. And they have to do something.
Exactly. It's not controversial because it is a fact. We have Sharia law. It is starting to destroy this country. And people like Sadiq Khan are lying to you. Well, Trump got him right as well.
Right.
I'm pretty much on first name terms with the guys on the corner of my street, and they're so friendly, and you see them putting shopping in the car of old women, and it counters this idea that they're an aggressive presence on the street. They're not. We've got such a crime problem in London, and I wonder whether Sadiq Khan should do something similar.
He's a terrible, terrible mayor. And as an example, I was a high-ranking officer, sort of always, or a president. Even as a civilian, I was a respected person. He treated me very badly. Yeah. I said, who is that guy? He's a terrible mayor. And look at the crime you have in London. My mother loved London. She loved that city. She'd always talk about, that was a different London than you have today. Yeah. Today you have people being stabbed in the ass or worse.
You are. You absolutely are. People are being stabbed in the arse or worse on a daily basis. As Khan's independent rival at the next election, Ant Middleton raged, sack him. It really is that simple. Consecutive failure of one's job with zero accountability and progression. At least he's been consistent year after year at being the worst London mayor ever. Roll on 2028. But in his GB News interview with my friend Bev Turner, who I think did a great job, actually, because she didn't try and do gotcha with Trump. She didn't try and force him into areas where he wasn't prepared to go. It was a really fascinating conversation. And without ever naming our Prime Minister, he quite rightly threw Slippery Starmer under the bus on immigration. Watch.
I'm so saddened to see what happened in Europe with the immigration. I think above all else, the immigration, but the bad taxing policies. When you look at, Europe is not the same place. No. I can't say every place, but pretty much almost every place. There are a couple of places, and I won't even get into that because those are the people, the leaders that aren't liked by the other European leaders. Yeah. But what's happened is so sad to Europe. And I think probably you have the same problem that we do with the fake news. If you don't get the news out and properly, it's never going to change. But Europe, I love Europe. Hey, I'm originally from
Scotland,
Europe, right? And between Scotland and Germany, right? Yeah. A German father and a Scottish mother. And a great mother, by the way, I have to tell you, great father, great mother. So I have a little prejudice toward Europe in those two places, but it's so sad to see what they're doing.
It is. It is tragic. It is devastating. And I thank you, Donald Trump, for being prepared to state those facts. So while our politicians and our regime media might lie to us every day because of people like Trump, because of shows like this, the British public are waking up. As the Green Party Deputy Leader Rachel Millward discovered after being blasted by locals for lying that illegal migrants are actually doctors and engineers. Watch.
My second question is actually directly to you, Rachel. It does actually go to you as well, James. You did a video the other day, Rachel, saying that all of these people, doctors and engineers and surgeons that are coming here, and we should give them the right to work. Now, firstly, engineers, doctors and surgeons do not come from France on a dinghy and throw their medical certificate overboard. It's very clear to me that you really don't understand the small boat crisis. So therefore, I'm going to say, why don't you resign, both of you, and make way for someone who understands the crisis? It's not a joke, Rachel. I'm serious. You do not have the capabilities to do this. You don't understand the small boat crisis. Step down, both of you, and let someone else take lead and actually get us what we need and represent this community, because you don't.
Amen. We are waking up. We're mad as hell and we're just not going to take it anymore. Now, the Superstar panel. Christine and Neil Hamilton with me. Neil, how refreshing was it to see Donald Trump actually admit what we all know and say quite simply, this is a fact, it's not even a controversial statement anymore. Sharia law is being introduced into the UK through the back door, and actually it is part of the destruction of our formerly great country.
Well, this is absolutely right. That what we're seeing before our eyes, and have been for many decades now, is a cultural displacement in this country. We are no longer the cohesive country that we used to be. Everybody identified with the United Kingdom, whatever part of it they lived in. Now we have, of course, throughout the great cities of England in particular, ethnic minority populations, large proportions of which don't feel their principal loyalty to the United Kingdom, but to their racial group, to their religion, to the countries from which they or their immediate ancestors came. And this is a very, very dangerous situation that we're in. And we see in the protests which are taking place spontaneously up and down the country, the British public at long last, and I've been warning about this for 50 years or more, waking up to the reality of what life is going to be like in a country that is no longer at peace with itself. I won't condemn people who are demonstrating on the streets at the complete deafness of the political class in this country to represent their interests. That wonderful clip that we've just seen a minute ago of members of parliament being taken to task for the lies that they've told to the electorate. All the mainstream parties have behaved in exactly the same way. The bulk of the recent increase in immigrant population has taken place under nominally conservative governments. Of course, it was the Blair government that deliberately opened the floodgates to mass migration in order to, as they put it, to undermine the arguments of the right by multiculturalism and to render their arguments redundant. So, this is a deliberate exercise on the part of the Labour Party to undermine the cohesiveness of this country and actually to destroy what a nation ought to be, something which is at ease with itself and which is cohesive.
Absolutely. And Christine, we have this gaslighting going on. Sadiq Khan, oh, it's so safe. It's so safe. Okay, go and tell that to Rhiannon White's sister, Alexandra White, who is now on the streets, Christine, and God bless that woman. Thank God she is. I wish, and I understand why some families can't do it. It's just too difficult. But thank God she is, because her sister, fatally stabbed 23 times in the head, Christine, by a dude from Sudan who was here illegally after just 11 weeks. The same thing happened to Wayne Broadhurst in West London just a couple of weeks ago. So to Sadiq Khan, I say F you and your statistics. Christine, most people don't even report to the Metropolitan Police anymore when they're mugged or when they're attacked. So the statistics are a joke. We know what is happening. We know we're unsafe. I don't feel safe on the streets of Sadiq Khan's London anymore, Christine. That's just a fact.
No, I don't know why I do your show, Dan, because every time I get so depressed.
Because you love me.
Well, it must be something like that, because it depresses me so much.
I know.
For the
I'm
last,
sorry about that.
25 minutes, you have been confirming what I know. It's not exactly news, but actually to have it all spelled out like that. And to see those seeds, those masked men with masks up to here and hoodies down to here on our streets, on British streets, it is just mind-boggling. And for Sadiq Khan, who cares, frankly, whether statistics of crime in London or New York are higher? What we care about is the statistics in London, and that member of the London Assembly read them all out. That's what matters to British people, not whether there are more stabbings in London or New York. That is irrelevant to most of us. We care what happens in our capital city. Well, it used to be our capital city, but frankly, it isn't anymore.
It's like
there's
a
horrifying statistic. There's a horrifying statistic, at least I find it horrifying, that anybody born today, when they're 25, a white Brit born today, by the time they're 25, they'll be in a minority in their own country. They will be in a country that doesn't share the same values, that doesn't share the same cultural cohesion. It's unbelievable. Somebody mentioned, I can't remember who, it might have been Katie Hopkins, the word domestic terrorists. That is what we've got. We've got domestic terrorists on our streets. And
yeah, I think it was Nick Tinconi, the leader of
probably.
UKIP.
We know why Sadiq Khan keeps getting elected, because he keeps his people are now taking over London.
Well, it's sectarian politics, isn't it? But Neil, that's what. Sorry, Christine, finish your point.
No, I think the statistic is that over 50% of Londoners were not even born in this country.
Correct.
Dear God, it's our capital city.
And Neil, then you get to the abuse, really, of Layla Cunningham by James O'Brien, who's Sadiq Khan's mate. Now, there's so many ironies here, Neil, because Layla Cunningham is a Muslim, right? Yeah. But because she's pointed out some of the realities about London, James O'Brien literally compares her to a Nazi.
Yeah. Well, James O'Brien is thoroughly anti-British. He hates our country and its history and heritage. He's always talking us down. He wants to destroy our country, in effect. He wants to create this multicultural melting pot where nobody feels an affinity actually with anybody else. That's an absolutely catastrophic future that is in prospect if we carry on in the way that we are. Christine was talking about more than half the people living in London today weren't actually born in the UK. Obviously, that includes people like you, Dan, which we're quite happy to have here. But a lot of people who we don't want.
Well,
to,
I'm a British citizen, so
exactly. But they don't share the cultural ideas that we all share.
Well, absolutely, and this is what drives me insane, right? Because it isn't about simply, oh, you can be born here and you're British, right? So I think my story is really important in all of this. So my mum, born in Essex to a good working class Essex family. My dad, born on a British Army base in Malta to a family from South Shields who were all miners, emigrate to New Zealand as 10-pound poms. So I'm born to British parents in New Zealand, but I am British. Do you see what I mean? I am British, like I am ethnically British, and I am also legally British ever since I was born. And that's why this idea that someone like Axel Rudakabana is British because he happened to be born here, or is ethnically English because he happened to be born here, is for the birds. Do you see what I mean? And so I actually think my story is really important in all of this, because where you are, you know the point I'm making, Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Well,
course I do.
Dan,
Sorry, Christine.
No, all I was going to say was that, Dan, yes, of course you're 100%, well, not 100% British, but you feel British. You share British values. You share British.
Yeah, well,
laws,
I am ethnically British. All of
Yes.
my roots are English.
Exactly. That's the difference.
And the fact that I was born in New Zealand is actually an irrelevance. And that is why when we start kidding ourselves that people who hate our country and do not share our values and do not share our culture are English simply because they're born here, we lead to this collapse in society. That is what is happening. It is the suicidal empathy collapse. And of course, there are different ways that people could and should emigrate to this country and prove that they deserve citizenship. I'm sorry, I will die on this hill. It does not make them English. It just doesn't. Or British, Scottish, Welsh, whatever it is. Just like if I was to emigrate to Nigeria, I would never be Nigerian. Now, I might get citizenship there because I would sign up to the values that that country had if I wanted to live there. So this is madness. We keep saying that these second-generation terrorists are English or British. No, they are not. And that is not racist. It is a fact. And I say this as someone who wasn't born in this country, but absolutely know that I am English through my roots, through my culture, through my heritage, and through my values, my Christian values. Breaking today, Mike Graham is about to speak out after his axe scene from Talk TV, as that station is mired in controversy, with Mike's show Plank of the Week tanking in the ratings for the first time being broadcast since he was officially dumped from the station. As the Grift Report posted, sorry Talk TV, but only Mike Graham can do Plank of the Week. No wonder you turned off comments and lost half your audience. I'd say if anyone was Plank of the Week, it's Talk TV. And what was interesting is that when Kevin O'Sullivan introduced this week's show, there was no mention of Mike Graham, despite the fact that previously he had admitted that he was filling in for the star host. Watch.
Welcome to Plank of the Week. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm in for Mike Graham, and I'm surrounded by beauty and glamour this week. Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week. I am Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got one hell of a panel for you today.
So he's just been erased from history, just like I was from GB News. But the problem is the viewers, the listeners are furious. Look at this post. It would be great. This is from Reform UK Grassroots, by the way. It would be great if Mike Graham's colleagues at Talk TV stood by his side and threatened to quit if he wasn't reinstated. You all know who you are. The alternative is all your viewers and listeners switch to GB News. Either way, you'll have to lose your jobs. Your call. But Mike is moving on. and he is moving on fast, posting over the weekend, "Please join my new crusade for the truth," and revealing this brand new video. Watch.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham. Welcome to my new world. I just want to say a really big thanks to all of you who have signed up so quickly to my new Substack and to my new YouTube channel. It's the MikeGrahamShow.com, and we're going to be producing it very, very soon. So look out for all the latest news, all the latest views, all the opinions that you've been missing for about a month. I'm going to be back with you very, very shortly.
And he is going to be back with a bang, because Mike Graham is already prepared to get much more political now that he is unleashed from his corporate shackles, with the head of the Pink Ladies, Orla Minihane, announcing that Mike this Saturday will be the star guest alongside Lucy Connolly at those major protests in Chelmsford. Mike confirmed, "I'll be joining the Pink Ladies next Saturday, protecting women and girls in Britain." But before that, I am delighted to announce today that Mike will be sitting down with me live at 5 p.m. tomorrow, that is Tuesday, in my interview studio to give his first interview since being sacked by Talk. Mike has agreed that no subject is going to be off limits. So like we do in the independent media, this will be a respectful but a no-holds-barred conversation where Mike will reveal everything that has happened since he made that post, or he claims didn't make that post on Facebook, which was branded racism and led to his defenestration from Talk TV. To my superstar panel now, Neil Hamilton and Christine Hamilton. Christine, you have been very publicly supportive of Mike Graham, and we shared one of your posts on X last week that made it clear that you thought this was a big mistake by Talk TV.
Yeah, I certainly do, and the viewing figures have proved that I was right, so that's nice. But Talk TV have behaved in exactly the same way that GB News behaved with you. They didn't believe Mike. They didn't believe their employee. They decided that he was not telling the truth, and therefore he had to go. GB News decided that you were not, and you had to go. You were able subsequently to prove that GB News were wrong and that you were telling the truth. All the allegations against you were withdrawn. But it was too late. They weren't prepared to give you the benefit of the doubt. And Talk TV, Talk Radio. No, is he on Talk Radio as well? No, he's only on Talk TV. Or is it the same thing?
It's the same thing now.
It's the same thing. It goes out on both. I hope that they are being proved wrong, because he was such a popular person. I mean, I didn't do his show very often. I did it a few times. I've met him a few times. He seems to be a thoroughly nice guy. And the alleged social media post, I just didn't recognise Mike Graham. I mean, it's just not the sort of thing you would think he would say. So I believe him, that it wasn't him. But if his employers are not prepared to believe him, then frankly, he's better off out. And I hope that he will prove that you have, that it's better off on the outside. It's not cold on the outside. It's actually a damn sight warmer. And he will be free like you're free. He'll be able to free to do what he likes, say what he likes. And people will, vote with their feet and their wallets.
Yeah, Neil Hamilton, it's interesting, actually, because I genuinely believe this will be the best thing that has happened to Mike Graham. I'm not just saying that. I genuinely believe that, because there are a whole load of issues that he has clearly had to follow a corporate script. Now, even he might not acknowledge that yet. He might not talk about that yet, but I just know it's the case, because you do have a groupthink mentality when you are part of a big operation like that. And let's be honest, one of the reasons he was sacked, Neil, is because of this growing wokery and really a civil war that had been raging between the staff of Talk TV and the staff of Talk Sport, who are really woke these days, oddly.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right, Dan. And you may recall that at the start of your Via Dolorosa from GB News, I said exactly the same to you, that life on the outside can be very exhilarating, and you may well find very quickly that you're very much better off as a result of what GB News did to you, and so it has proved to be. I think this is very exhilarating, actually, that just as in the political world, individual disruptors are managing to break out of the corporate straitjacket in the media, is going to be a good thing for everybody, because the stranglehold of the elites, whether they be in politics or in the corporate world, has been dramatically loosened by the freedoms which the internet gives us. And so, we can't be controlled, we can't be muzzled any longer. And we've got an audience out there, and they need to be represented. They need somebody to speak for them, to speak to them, and speak with them. And when you're constrained by corporate wokery, of course, that doesn't happen. And so there's a kind of spontaneous uprising as a result of this, where the people are fighting back. And it's a great feeling to be part of that megaphone, which you are. I think this is wonderful, actually. I'm sure Mike Graham will make as great a success of it very quickly as you've done.
I think he will too. I really, really do. And I say bring it on. Christine, can we talk, please, about this very thorny issue of whether the other Talk TV presenters, his colleagues for many years, some his close friends, are being disloyal in some way by not acknowledging Mike, by not talking about his departure. Now, you can imagine there's been such a big pushback over this over the past couple of weeks. I've had a lot of it towards me saying, well, what do you want, Dan? Do you want the station to close? Do you want me to lose my job as well? And I hear that to an extent. But obviously we had Russell Quirk, the Talk presenter, last week come out and say, sorry, I've got to say something. I have to speak out. Now, we'll see if he's cancelled from the station. He is due to appear on Plank of the Week this Friday. I'm hoping they don't cancel him, because that then sends a message to others. No, it is okay to speak out. And look, I would just point to some examples from my time at GB News. As you well know, Christine, most people really disgustingly did stay completely silent because they were too afraid to speak out. But one who didn't was Bev Turner. She was incredibly supportive of me. She spoke out both privately and publicly to defend me. Hardly affected her career, did it, Bev? She's just interviewed goddamn Donald Trump in the Oval Office over the weekend. My argument would be, actually, the bosses respect someone who has their own view. As long as you express that view in a respectful manner, I hardly think these people are going to be sacked for speaking up for Mike Graham, or at least saying something nice about him. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you make of it?
Well, I know nothing about the internal workings of Talk TV. What I do know is that one or two of them are paid a fortune. One of them was GB News tried to tempt them across, no names, no pack drill, and they were offered the most eye-watering sum not to leave. So if they're risking their jobs, they're risking a monumental amount of money. But that, that's the coward's way out, isn't it? Oh, I can't afford. I might lose my job. No, well, actually, full marks to GB News, because it didn't hold Bev Turner back. So that's a good example. And people at Talk TV perhaps ought to look at that and say, well, hang on a minute. Why can't I speak out too? If I feel, as I'm sure some of them do, they must do. I mean, the way Mike Graham was treated was appalling. I mean, he didn't have a proper trial. There was no proper investigation, as far as I'm aware. It was just, oh, you've been accused, out. So, it'd be nice if one or two of them came forward. I mean, maybe they could all come forward in unison. They can't sack them all. There's unity in strength. Strength in unity, that's what I meant to say. But, I don't know. It's quite hard. I'll tell you, actually, just slightly moving off that subject.
Yes.
What is very hard is, I mean, the people you're talking about, we're talking about, are the people at the top, the visible people, the faces. There's an awful lot of people behind the scenes, and there were at GB News who felt incredibly strongly, you know this, that you had been appallingly treated, but they obviously didn't dare speak out because they didn't dare lose their jobs. They couldn't quite so easily hop onto something else.
And by the way, I really want to stress, in terms of my personal situation, while I was incredibly grateful for people who did speak out, people like you and Neil, people like Megyn Kelly, who refused to return to the station, still hasn't to this day, people like Father Calvin Robinson, who lost their job, genuinely, I never asked someone to speak out publicly. And actually, if they approached me, I said, you know, I don't expect you to say anything. Of course I don't. I don't want you to lose your job. So absolutely, when it came to me, that was how I felt. But Neil, there's something quite uncomfortable about watching a man like Mike Graham, who could have cut him open and he would have bled talk radio, right? That's how much he was part of this station. He was offered huge money to go across to GB News, huge life-changing money, and he didn't because he had a loyalty to this station, Talk. Now, as it turned out, that was a mistake because they have shown no loyalty back to him.
Yeah, I just don't understand the spinelessness of these corporate organisations. Mike Graham was a big part of Talk TV, same as you were a big part of GB News. You both, in your different ways, built the audiences that made these stations what they are. And I think it's extraordinary, in even a commercial sense, to say that all that's thrown out of the window because of some sort of poxy little campaign against you on some bogus excuse, and to deny you natural justice as well in the investigation of whatever it is that you've been accused of doing. It doesn't seem to me to make commercial sense. It certainly doesn't make moral sense. And I've seen it, of course, in politics many times. I've been the victim of it myself a long time ago, when I did, and more recently too, when I come to think of it. But it's a natural human proclivity, I suppose, is to keep your head down. Otherwise, you might get it shot off. But there are ways in which you can express your sympathy and support without being belligerent about it. What are these free speech channels about if they're not about allowing you a certain degree of latitude to comment upon the affairs of your own station? So I think it's very disappointing what we've seen with Talk TV, same way as I thought it was very disappointing what we've seen on GB News in respect not just of yourself, but a number of other star performers. We saw it back with Mark Steyn, for example.
Mark Steyn, Lawrence Fox. There's been a lot of
quite a long time back. So what we're just seeing with Mike Graham isn't anything new, but you would think that people will learn a lesson by what's happening with the audience figures and the contrast, of course, with the audience figures that you're now generating as an independent producer and performer. And I'm sure Mike will be able to claim the same success as you've done with his own podcast.
I think loads of people are going to say, no, we still want to wake up with Mike Graham. What I do need to say, of course, is that News UK claim that there was an investigation into Mike Graham, which they offered him multiple opportunities to cooperate with. They say he did not. So tomorrow, when I sit down face to face with Mike Graham, we're going to be live, by the way, so this will be completely unedited. That's what we do here in the independent media. Mike will get his opportunity to respond to News UK for the first time, and you will be able to watch that live at 5 o'clock UK time right here on Dan Wootton Outspoken. Breaking today, the British Bashing Corporation has a death wish. This corrupted organisation and its hopeless chairperson is fighting back against Donald Trump in a way that I think could actually put its very survival at threat, and my God, I am here for it. So you may have seen over the weekend on Air Force One, Donald Trump upped the ante with the BBC saying he will absolutely go ahead with his legal action after they refused to settle for a small figure. So now he's going for up to $5 billion. Watch.
We'll sue them for anywhere between $1 billion and $5 billion, probably sometime next week.
So you're ready to take?
Well, I think I have to do it. I mean, they've even admitted that they cheated. Not that they couldn't have not done that. They cheated. They changed the words coming out of my mouth.
Well, they did. And in Donald Trump's exclusive interview with Bev Turner in the Oval Office, he made it clear that this wasn't just about him. And this is what I have huge respect for. It's about what the British Bashing Corporation does to everyone on our side of the political aisle. Watch.
You know, you worry about AI because things like this can happen, you know, with their different geniuses. I mean, you know, you can do things. I've seen things that are incredible. But you can't imagine that BBC did this somewhat crudely, actually.
Yeah.
You know, it was done sort of crudely.
They'd clipped together, hadn't they, two parts of the speech that were nearly an hour apart.
It's incredible.
To depict the idea that you had given this aggressive speech which led to this riot.
And one making you into a bad guy, and the other one was, you know, my statement was a very calming statement. It's pretty incredible. I mean, I couldn't believe it, actually. I've never seen, I've been doing this for a long time. I've never seen anything like that. That's the most egregious. I think that was worse than the Kamala thing with CBS and 60 Minutes.
How far will you push it? Because they haven't offered, our understanding is they've offered no money whatsoever. They've apologised in a letter, but they haven't offered you a penny in compensation. There was this figure of $1 billion that you may be pursuing.
I think I have an obligation to do it. Look, I'm not looking to get into lawsuits, but I think I have an obligation to do it. This was so egregious. If you don't do it, you don't stop it from happening again with other people. I think you probably have an obligation. I'd like to find out why they did it. You know, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Who thinks like this? And I wonder if they've done it. We'll find this out. You know, the nice part about litigation is we'll find out how many times have they done it to other people. Maybe they did it to me quite a bit.
And there's so many people when it comes to the BBC who are trying to turn this into an issue of Brits versus the rest of the world, as if we have to be proud of an institution that has shamed our country, disgraced our country for decades. Remember, this organisation shielded our most despicable paedophile and actually ran a paedophile ring around Jimmy Savile. So I've said for a long time, if it was a private organisation, it would have been shut down a long time ago. And guess who's with me? Liz Truss. Watch this.
There are lots of people in Britain who are cheering President Trump on and who want him to sue the BBC because they're a huge problem. They've lied, they've cheated, they've fiddled with footage, both in the case of President Trump, but also covering up what's happening in Britain, whether it's mass migration, whether it's our economic problems. They are always biased towards the left, and the British taxpayer has had to pay for all of this fake news. So there is a lot of excitement amongst Conservatives in Britain at the moment that President Trump is actually taking the BBC on.
Do you think an apology from the BBC is enough?
No, I don't, because they keep doing it again and again. They have painted a completely false picture of President Trump in Britain over a number of years. They've done the same thing about Conservatives in our country. And I believe the organisation needs to be defunded. And as well as suing the BBC, I think it would be fantastic if President Trump were to encourage stopping the British taxpayer funding what is fake news that is damaging Britain's reputation.
It is. And they do keep on doing it again and again. Look at this. White House fury at Trump monster jibe in showpiece BBC lecture, with the Mail reporting the row between the BBC and Donald Trump has escalated further after it was revealed the broadcaster commissioned a fierce critic of the US president to deliver its flagship annual lecture. Dutch author Rutger Bregman used the high-profile events to draw parallels between Trump's America and the rise of fascism in the 1930s. As Nigel Farage said, the BBC is diseased and needs radical surgery at every level, including the removal of the license fee. I say just shut it down. Seriously, just shut it down altogether. Especially after its completely hopeless chairman released a new letter to staff today promising to fight the US president. Let me just read you the key line. I want to be very clear with you. Our position has not changed. There is no basis for a defamation case, and we are determined to fight this. So guess what? They're following the Alistair Campbell playbook. Because Alistair Campbell at the weekend decided to do a little cosplay of Slippery Starmer. It was as cringeworthy as you could imagine. Watch.
If I were Keir Starmer, this is what I would say right now at that lectern.
Very good.
Maybe not that one, maybe inside number 10. The BBC made a big mistake. Many media organisations make big mistakes. Unlike the others, the BBC has apologised and taken responsibility, and the Director General has gone. That should be the end of the matter. The attacks upon the BBC by the Conservatives and Reform are contemptible, given the huge role the BBC plays in our national life and our global reputation. I have this evening spoken to President Trump. I have made clear in the strongest possible terms that his attacks and those of his office and supporters upon the BBC are unacceptable. We do not want an American-style media landscape in this country. I will protect and strengthen the BBC, and to that end we will invest more in the World Service and the BBC regions. Finally, my message for the BBC leadership. 1, clear out the political partisans at the top, or I will do it for you. 2, start platforming the Lib Dems, the Greens and the Nationalists as often as you platform that ragbag of 5 MPs called Reform UK. 3, stop pandering to a right wing that is determined to destroy you. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Oh, ho, ho, ho.
Thank you.
Ho, ho, ho. From the man who should be in jail for leading the United Kingdom into an illegal war. That killed our servicemen, that killed millions of Iraqis. I mean, Christine and Neil Hamilton, doesn't Alistair Campbell just actually reveal what this is really about at the end there? We want the BBC because we want you to stop platforming Nigel Farage and Reform UK, but push the Greens and the Lib Dems. They're happy with the BBC because they know that there is a political motivation, Neil.
Well, the BBC does platform the Greens and the Lib Dems. I mean, the BBC is explicitly pro-net zero. They won't allow anybody who is against this climate alarmism to broadcast. And you just look at the BBC website, it's full of the most amazing rubbish, which is regularly factually untrue. And there are numerous complaints against them that are put in by Paul Homewood, who runs a website called Not a Lot of People Know That, which is full of brilliant people who really know what they're talking about climate science. But of course, the BBC marks its own homework. You can't complain to Ofcom about them until you've complained to the BBC, and you know that's going to be a waste of time. So, I mean, if you're reduced to having Alistair Campbell as your standard bearer for truth and accuracy and impartiality, then I'm afraid you're pretty desperate, aren't you? But I mean, what we've seen with Trump, of course, goes back a long way. I mean, it happened to me 40 years ago with a Panorama program called Maggie's Militant Tendency. And then I was introduced, along with another 3 or 4 Conservative MPs, as we then were, as being a tightly knit conspiracy of closet Nazis trying to take over the Conservative Party, just like the Militant Tendency was a collection of Trotskyites trying to take over the Labour Party in those years. You know, what we're seeing today is nothing new. They've never learned their lesson as a result of a libel action that I took against the BBC, which took me 3 years when, you know, we had almost no financial resources ourselves. The BBC even then had an income of $2 billion a year with which to fight us, and they threw everything they possibly could at us. But we motored on through. At the end of it, we went into court and demolished them. They sued for peace after I'd been in the witness box for a few days. And then we got the Director General of the BBC, then Alistair Milne, sacked.
Yes, so, which was a big scandal. But Christine, you actually wrote about this in your autobiography and said it was a complete hatchet job, and it was actually really devastating for you.
It was horrific. I mean, Neil was a newly elected MP, elected the June before, and this was in January 1984. And suddenly there he was on national television. And don't forget, in those days, we didn't have all the options of channels, so more people would have been watching, completely and utterly destroyed. I mean, he was portrayed, as Neil has said, as a fascist and not. I mean, don't go there. It was horrific. But what is extraordinary to us, because we were promised, of course, oh, we won't do this again, you know, this will never happen again. We have tightened up our procedures. The tactics that they used against Neil were exactly the same. They said that X was Y. They spliced together this and called it that. It was absolutely, it was the tactics of Goebbels, frankly, it was what they used. And the great difference, of course, between Neil and us in those days is that Trump has unlimited resources with which to fight the BBC.
Yes.
Now, whether he has a legal case or not, that is for the lawyers, because it's hugely complicated, because it's two different countries, and whether he's been defamed, etc., etc. But what the BBC have to be very aware of, if they don't make sure that they settle this and shut it down, is if Trump pursues it, they will be liable for opening up for public scrutiny all their internal emails, all their WhatsApps, all their internal memos, because that's what you have to do when you're heading towards a court case. Now, they would be very interesting indeed. So my guess is the BBC will seek some way to settle it, but I'm damned if it's going to be using my money. This may be the straw that breaks the camel's back for an awful lot of people who just say, never again the licence fee.
Well, I hope so. I honestly hope so. I'm totally with Liz Truss on this. I'm not even with Nigel Farage, where it's like, oh no, it just needs a bit of restructuring, get rid of the license fee. Absolutely not. I mean, it should go. Sure, turn it into a entirely private broadcaster, and if people want to pay for it that way, then fine. But this is an organization that has been disgraced over so many years. I mean, how phenomenal, not in a good way, but how phenomenal that Panorama was allowed to stay on air after what they did to Neil Hamilton. And I just repeat the point. Imagine if this had been a private enterprise, the idea that you'd still have Panorama on air, operating, still screwing people over 40 years later would just be for the birds. But it's the BBC, so they get away with murder. In some cases, quite literally. Breaking today, a bombshell new book claims that Princess Diana's death was directly caused by the BBC's Panorama programme and its corrupted journalist, Martin Bashir. Now, this is going to be a massive development for Prince William, who has for a long time campaigned against the British Bashing Corporation, as I call it, as a result of the Panorama interview where Diana revealed that there were 3 of us in this marriage. As Chris Rose posted, you're not patriotic if you don't support the BBC. Well, to secure an interview with Princess Diana, the former BBC journalist Martin Bashir deceitfully used fake bank statements and concocted stories about her staff spying on her for security. Defunding the BBC is long overdue. Now, this new book, which is published later this month, Diana Rama, is going to be absolutely damning for the corporation. It is written by the former BBC journalist Andy Webb, and it claims that it sent her life on a terribly dangerous course. Now, before I get into the new revelations from this book, I want to remind you of the most emotional public statement that was ever made by Prince William when the Dyson report confirmed what he had known deep down in his soul for many years. Watch.
BBC employees lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother, made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia, displayed woeful incompetence when investigating complaints and concerns about the programme, and were evasive in their reporting to the media and covered up what they knew from their internal investigation. It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others. It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia, and isolation that I remember from those final years with her. But what saddens me most is that if the BBC had properly investigated the complaints and concerns first raised in 1995, my mother would have known that she had been deceived. She was failed not just by a rogue reporter, but by leaders at the BBC who looked the other way rather than asking the tough questions.
And this new book, Diana Rama, has gone one step further than Prince William, claiming that that interview did directly lead to Diana's death. Let me take you through the key revelations. After the BBC's apology to President Trump for a misleading edit of his speech on its flagship current affairs show, a new book tells the comprehensive story of another Panorama scandal. In November 1995, Diana, the Princess of Wales, gave a candid interview to the reporter Martin Bashir, revealing intimate details of the disintegration of her marriage to Prince Charles and casting doubt on whether he was fit to become king. An estimated 200 million people worldwide watched the programme, which made broadcasting history and shaped the future of the royal family. Within days, allegations surfaced that Bashir had used forged bank statements to trick Diana into agreeing to the interview. 25 years later, the BBC commissioned an investigation by the former judge, Lord Dyson, which found that Bashir had won Diana's trust through deceitful behaviour, having seriously breached the BBC's editorial rules. Dyson, whose inquiry cost more than £1 million, concluded that the BBC's initial internal investigation in 1996 had been woefully ineffective and that the corporation had covered up any wrongdoing. Many questions remained unanswered, however, not least regarding the documents from the BBC, which had mysteriously vanished. Now, 30 years after Diana's interview was broadcast, Andy Webb, an author and former BBC TV reporter, has written Diana Rama, a book charting his decades-long campaign to uncover the truth. Webb describes it as a story more lurid, more fantastical than anything that happened at the Tudor court of Henry VIII. And here are the top 10 claims in the book. Number 1, Bashir approached Earl Spencer, Diana's brother, in an effort to reach his sister. Number 2, the extraordinary scale of Bashir's lies. Prince William is recording you, the Queen will abdicate, and Prince Edward has AIDS. Number 3, Bashir was actually seeking a £1.5 million book deal. Number 4, the Mishcon note in reference to Diana's lawyer. Number 5, the mysterious missing documents and the BBC Mafia memo. Now, Webb uncovered an 8-page memorandum composed by Anna Stoneman, then the BBC's acting head of weekly programmes, dated April the 22nd, 1996. Webb described it as a treasure map because it revealed the existence of other BBC documents that later went missing. Stoneman's note, he writes, ends with the chilling words, "The Diana story is probably now dead unless Spencer talks." When questioned by Lord Dyson in February 2021, Stoneman said it sounds a bit like the mafia, but it wasn't meant that way. I promise you. Number 6, a cover-up within a cover-up. Number 7, Bashir bragged from his sickbed of his friendship with Diana. Number 8, the limits of the Dyson report were even acknowledged by Lord Dyson himself. Number 9, the scandal remains an open wound for William. And number 10, from Panorama to Paris, I hold Bashir responsible for Diana's death. So here's the key point. Charles and Diana separated in 1992. But the interview prompted the late Queen to urge Charles and Diana to finalise their divorce, which was completed the following year. After losing trust in loyal aides such as Patrick Jepson, she was left isolated. It led to her staying in Paris with Dodi Fayed with poor security and a fatal car crash in August 1997. Webb concludes that a line can be drawn between the programme and Diana's death less than 2 years later. He writes, it seemed to me that because of what Martin Bashir has done in 1995, and more importantly, because it had then been covered up, Diana's life had been sent off on a terribly dangerous course, resulting in her death. He's not alone in this view. In his statement after the Dyson report, Prince Harry said, "Our mother lost her life because of this." Simone Simmons, a woman who I know, Diana's new age therapist, recalled that Diana was terribly excited after meeting Bashir. She was floating on a cloud that you couldn't get her down from. She told the author, "I hold Bashir fully responsible for Diana's death. Not partly responsible, fully responsible. If it wasn't for him, she would still be alive." The other side of the argument from the BBC now. A spokesperson for the organisation saying in 2020, the BBC commissioned Lord Dyson to conduct an independent investigation so that he could gain a full picture of what happened in 1995. The BBC provided all relevant documentation that was in the BBC's possession to the Lord Dyson inquiry. Other individuals involved in these events also supplied Lord Dyson with written materials. In May 2021, the BBC published the Lord Dyson report and accepted his conclusions in full. This has all been well documented. I note no denial of the fundamental claim from the book, which is that that Panorama interview and Martin Bashir's corrupted attempt to lie to Diana in order to get her to speak to him directly resulted in her death. To my superstar panel, Neil Hamilton and Christine Hamilton, did the BBC kill Princess Diana, Christine, as this new book claims?
Well, no, they didn't kill Princess Diana. She was killed by a drunken driver, etc., etc. That's the sort of basic fact. But whether the BBC's evil actions contributed, I mean, there's a difference between, you know, causation and correlation and all this, that and the other. It's semantics. No, a drunken driver killed her. It was a terrible, terrible car accident. There were 4 people in the car. 3 of them did not have seatbelts and 3 of them were killed. 1 had a seatbelt and was not. But that does not excuse, and isn't it extraordinary, by the way, that what is the programme responsible again? Panorama, those holier-than-thou, entitled, lofty individuals who are supposed to teach us all, you know, how the world works. Panorama again. I mean, where is Martin Bashir by now? He ought to be in prison. He absolutely ought to be in prison. There's no doubt, I'm sure, that that interview, especially when she discovered the way that it had been put together and the fact that she was lied to, I mean, that must have been horrific for her to realise that she'd been set up and double-crossed. So I'm sure it helped her, must be careful what I say, her sort of instability, her mental instability. And yes, it may have forced her into the arms of somebody so deeply unsuitable as Dodi fired. And but no, I mean, it isn't. The BBC did not kill Diana, and I can't go along with that. But I mean, their behaviour was absolutely despicable. And the difference between that Panorama programme and the current one, which is the Trump one, is that Trump, fortunately, is still alive to do something about it. She is helpless. And up until now, her sons have been completely helpless. But maybe, I don't know whether this will give them any closure. Probably not. For me, it would just absolutely reawaken everything. And the sheer horror, the absolute horror of that interview and the way it was sought. I mean, I can see now, I can't remember his name, but the BBC employee who's come forward in the last whatever year and said, yes, here is the bill or the whatever it was that I doctored to make it look as though somebody had been.
And I mean, it was one hell of an operation. I mean, they literally,
it's unbelievable, like the Great Train Robbery.
Yeah, they faked documents that made it look as if News International, Rupert Murdoch's newspaper, were paying certain people in Diana's employ in order to make her no longer trust the people who were around her. I mean, it was one hell of an operation. Neil Hamilton, where do you stand on the revelations in this book, Neil?
Well, it sounds all too credible, doesn't it? All too obvious in retrospect. I don't suppose when this whole story started, you could have predicted the outcome that she would be killed in the tunnel in Paris all those years later. But that's not the point. The chain of causation stems from this programme. And there's no doubt that the reality is that the BBC ultimately was responsible for what happened, as much as the drunk driver in a way, because if it had not been for this programme and the effect it had on Diana, she may never have got into that car. So it's not just a matter of what was predictable 30 years ago. It's actually what did happen, and if it had not happened, would the result have been the same? And the answer that I believe is no. So yes, the BBC does have blood on its hands in this particular instance, and their complete inability to recognise the magnitude of their errors and the perfidy for which their own staff have been responsible in so many different ways, not just in the Diana case, but we even see it in the Trump case. They haven't fully come out and recognize that the rot starts right in the middle of their organization, and the culture in which people like Bashir thrived was set, of course, by the management in the organization. The complete lack of control, lack of interest in the truth, and I saw this in my own case 40 years ago with Maggie's militant tendency. And as Christine was saying a moment ago, the great thing about a defamation case is that you get access to all sorts of documents which will otherwise never see the light of day. And if only we could see what lurks still in the BBC archives in respect to the Diana case, then I think that would be very illuminating. So, no, I mean, the BBC, I'm afraid, is rotten like a dead fish, from the top down.
Totally.
And it has to have a complete clear out if it's to survive, starting with the chairman. Of course, why he survived, God knows, after the Director General and the head of news been fired ignominiously or resigned before they were pushed. There are throughout the BBC's organisation people of the same mentality. I mean, how many people as a proportion find their daily reading matter in The Guardian, for example? And how many?
Well, it's the number one newspaper ordered by the BBC. The number one newspaper is The Guardian. No one reads it in the rest of the country, apart from at the BBC, which is keeping it in business. Christine, I just wanted to raise a point that you made in terms of how William and Harry deal with this now going forward, because I've done a lot of reporting on this over the past couple of years, and it's interesting. They're at a very different place. Prince William was able to view the Dyson report almost as a full stop on the matter. So clearly he was furious. He absolutely believes, Christine, in his soul, that Panorama interview, at least in part, resulted in Diana's death. Harry is not ready to accept that this should just be at an end. And it's one of the reasons why he's considering this Netflix documentary, which might look at his mother's death. Would you have any issues with him going down that path? Obviously, William has been very clear that he believes their mother should be able to rest in peace, and he doesn't want... You might remember at the 20th anniversary of her death, what was that? So, a good few years ago now, they made those TV documentaries for the BBC and for ITV, but William made them on the understanding that that's it. We move on now. William and Harry are at very different places over this.
Well, they can do what they want, and frankly, I don't particularly care what Harry does. He's lost it as far as I'm concerned. But there comes a moment when whatever has happened to you, however awful it is, you have to say enough is enough, and I have to get on with my life. This will obviously reignite a lot of old wounds for the whole family. In particular for the two boys, but you can't go on forever raking over it. I don't know. I mean, I would like to feel, William in particular, he's got a lot on his plate. His father is not well, his wife is possibly not well. He might be king fairly soon. He's got 3 young children. He needs to move on and get on with the rest of life. But, these revelations are extraordinary. And I mean, I look forward to reading the book. The way she was treated, and I'm just trying to put myself in William's position. I mean, the way his mother was treated was just unbelievable by the state broadcaster, by the people that they would have been brought up to trust. I mean, by the way, how many people are there inside the BBC who are members of Reform or even members of the Conservative Party? None, I should think. But, you know, he was brought up to trust the BBC. We were all brought up to trust the BBC. And they are, as Neil said, they are completely rotten to the core from the head down. They need to be. It's like the Augean stables. It will never be right until it's frankly swept away. But what the boys do, look, it's up to them. I just hope that they will eventually be able to find closure, if you can ever find closure after your mother has been treated.
Well, I think William has. I think William has. I don't think Harry will. And I think that's partly about the rest of the unhappiness going on in their lives. But look, a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much to my brilliant superstar panel, Neil and Christine Hamilton. Adore you both. We'll speak very soon. Thank you. And of course, we will reveal today's greatest Britain Union jackass in just one moment. First to your comments, though. Baba NC8WP says, in response to those scenes in Bristol and Antifa over the weekend, no face coverings. Maybe they wouldn't be so bloody brave if they didn't have to hide behind it. Lewis Scales makes a good point about this isn't all just, you know, centered in London. He says it's not just London. Where I feel unsafe in Peterborough. We get treated like shit up here. They give you dirty looks in the town centre, chasing and harassing women. Silerian Unlimited says rivers of blood, as predicted by Enoch Powell, and he was rubbish for saying so. They're neither laughing or ignoring the stark warning given in 1968, or they shouldn't be. And on James O'Brien, Bob Abui says, what an argument. James O'Brien is like, yeah, it's unsafe and bad, talking about London, but it's worse somewhere else, so that makes it okay that London is bad. And Swipe650 says, looking forward to the Mike Graham interview tomorrow. So am I. So am I. Okay, a reminder of your Union Jackass nominees. Angela Rayner nominated by It's Back Again because she still hasn't paid the £40,000 she owes to HMRC. Narinder Kaur nominated by Kaz Quinn for cozying up to the Green Party and Zach Polanski over the weekend. She says the grift don't stop. And Rachel Reeves nominated by Warning Shout because she's just added another black hole to the one that they inherited, with more to come, referring to the budget, which is very, very soon. And this was a close one today. Goodness gracious me. In third place with 29% of the vote, Angela Rayner. The runner-up with 31% of the vote, Rachel Reeves. But for her Green Party grift, the worst Britain in the world today, your Union Jackass this Monday, Narinder Kaur, with 39% of the vote. And it is an honorary Greatest Britain today, nominated by Anna Ireland, is Donald Trump, who says he is giving exactly what the BBC deserves. I bet they thought it was a bluff. Now, coming up in the Uncancelled After Show over on Substack, we're moving there now because desperately ambitious Meghan Markle has infuriated Netflix chiefs with her transparent bid to cozy up to Jeff Bezos. We're going to have all the latest as we team up with the Royal News Network. So we'll come off YouTube and move to Substack for that. But please, if you are watching on a desktop, hang around, because immediately after this live broadcast, we're going to put up our show with Mike Graham tomorrow. You will be able to click on watch later, so you'll be alerted to the show when we go live with Mike Graham tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So hit subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, turn on the notification bell. Then you will be alerted to all of our new episodes, including that special live episode from our interview studio. I'm face to face with Mike Graham. Very much looking forward to it, 5 p.m. tomorrow. Remember, before then, though, most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.